In today's world, bureaucratic structures and administrative regulations have become an inseparable part of our everyday lives. These systems, which were originally meant to establish order and justice, have evolved into vast and complex networks that now control both the individual and social aspects of human existence. The countless rules and regulations, manifested in the forms, directives, and official circulars, have turned life into a cold and unpredictable game, one in which the possibility of error and failure is ever present, and there are no guarantees of success or access to one's true rights. Instead of facilitating processes, these regulations have often become rigid obstacles and towering walls that make life harsh and mechanical. Administrative bureaucracies, with their complicated structures, technical terminology, and long procedures, have come to resemble prisons that restrain individuals, depriving them of their natural rights to decision-making and autonomy. Contrary to their original purpose of simplifying life, these systems create feelings of confusion, distrust, and helplessness. When faced with such overwhelming systems, people often feel trapped in a vortex of rigid and immutable rules, unable to penetrate the depths of these structures or grasp the reality behind them. As a result, these systems distance people from one another, weaken the sense of solidarity and collective belonging, and led individuals toward deep loneliness and alienation. Franz Kafka's novel The Castle, written in 1922 and published posthumously in 1926 by Max Brod, his close friend and literary executor, is one of the most iconic literary works of the 20th century. The book offers a symbolic depiction of humanity's struggle to penetrate the complex and inaccessible structures of power and bureaucratic order. The story revolves around a land surveyor named K, who arrives in a remote village in pursuit of access to a mysterious castle which stands as a symbol of power, order, and convoluted administrative systems. Kafka uniquely and deeply portrays the crisis of modern humanity in the face of bureaucratic systems. The surveyor, symbolizing a person who confronts these cold and soulless structures with determination and hope, repeatedly faces obstacles, confusion, and failures that gradually overwhelm him. Kafka's perspective in this work is philosophical, psychological, and social, revealing the human struggle to attain justice and true meaning in a complex and unforgiving world. The Castle is a reflection of Kafka's existential concerns, loneliness, alienation, and the search for belonging in a world where laws more often obstruct than enable. In the modern era, laws and bureaucracies have quickly turned into systems that separate people from themselves and from one another. Structures intended to bring about justice and order have, in practice, become merciless prisons that deprive individuals of clarity and control over their destinies. Within these systems, human beings are reduced to faceless statistics in lifeless records, their individuality and freedom pushed to the margins. Any attempt to access or reform the system is met with a labyrinth of incomprehensible and endless rules, gradually extinguishing hope for justice and meaning. The alienation of modern humans is a natural consequence of these rigid and inflexible structures, which distance individuals not only from society, but also from their authentic selves. Regulations that should simplify life become obstacles instead, creating a cold and hollow space where loneliness and despair take root. Caught between layers of complexity and bureaucratic walls, people become passive and disheartened beings who, in their search for meaning and justice, constantly face insurmountable challenges. This sense of emptiness and isolation is one of the core themes Kafka powerfully and hauntingly depicts in The Castle. As a symbolic novel, The Castle contains profoundly deep and expansive layers of meaning, each representing a facet of the modern world's complex reality. The castle in the story is not just a physical building, but a symbol of the structures of power, immensely distant from the understanding and reach of ordinary people, trapping individuals in a vast maze of administrative hierarchy, ambiguous rules, and undefined regulations. The protagonist, K, not only contends with bureaucracy, but also faces deep loneliness and alienation. Kafka, who worked as an insurance clerk, sharply criticized the bureaucratic atmosphere of his time in his letters, critiques that inspired many of his most brilliant works. This novel was written during the Austro-Hungarian Empire and, at a deeper level, reflects the social and political conditions of its time. For example, some critics have pointed to the requirement for Barnabas' family to prove their guilt before being allowed to request pardon, or the villagers' abandonment of them, as subtle references to the anti-Semitism of Kafka's era. K, the land surveyor, represents the human being who, with strong will and hope, tries to find a place within a cold and indifferent system. Yet, time and again, he encounters numerous obstacles, confusion, and profound despair. He is the embodiment of the modern individual, lost in the attempt to understand and penetrate bureaucratic systems, whose efforts to find justice and meaning are constantly thwarted. Kafka's writing style in The Castle is another of the novel's key strengths, directly emphasizing the atmosphere of confusion and unease. His short, fragmented, and ambiguous sentences effectively reflect the protagonist's mental state. This style allows the reader to share K's disorientation and anxiety, and to deeply experience his despair and struggle. Furthermore, the novel's unfinished and open-ended form, with no clear resolution, intensifies the sense of uncertainty and the endlessness of the modern individual's battle within bureaucratic frameworks. Another subtle yet important element of the novel is the presence of secondary characters, each representing aspects of bureaucratic systems and social complexities. Through their contradictory behaviors, unclear language, and emotionally distant interactions, they fill the story with chaos and paradox, symbolizing the inner contradictions of modern society and the human condition. Kafka's The Castle is not merely a story about an individual battling bureaucracy, but rather a profound philosophical critique of the modern world and its intricacies. K's endless journey toward the castle represents humanity's quest for meaning, justice, and a place within a world whose rules often stand as barriers rather than bridges. The novel shows how systems of power and law can sever people from their true selves, transforming them into lonely, confused, and meaningless beings. The Castle invites the reader to reflect on the relationship between the individual, law, and authority, and to reconsider their role within such intricate systems. K's very summons to the castle, triggered by a supposed disruption between the castle and the village, suggests that the belief in the infallibility of bureaucratic systems is a mere illusion. Kafka demonstrates how the internal contradictions of vast institutions can drive people, at the very heart of the modern world, into loneliness, alienation, and anxiety. And perhaps the only sliver of hope lies in the land surveyor's continued effort to understand the workings of the castle, even if that effort is ultimately destined to fail. Thanks for watching.